like 8:30 p.m. at this point. I'm literally behind my teacher's desk holding someone else's graded state final exam. If I get caught, there's literally no logical excuse I can make. It's over. I could get expelled, maybe even arrested for trespassing, honestly. And almost as if it was on cue, before I could even put the test back, the light in the room turns on. Yo, I really appreciate you guys a lot for supporting me, for real, because I made a lot of hard decisions to get here, man. I spent years working more than 40 hours a week on videos. I disappointed my family by not going to college. I cut off friends, told some pretty personal stories to random people on the internet.
Bullet was 1 foot long and getting yeeted out of your pants.
But it was all worth it because I'm fulfilling what I believe to be my life's purpose. But now, Mr. Pets, that was in your You look pretty black to me. Making people laugh. Of all the perks that come with being a YouTuber, this is definitely the most important one to me. It makes me feel really good, so I don't regret not one decision I made to get here. Well, except for one. Let me tell you about the time I broke multiple laws for the sake of pursuing my passion. This took place near the end of my senior year of high school. I was just getting into my channel around this time, so I was struggling with the workload of making videos and also being a student. What I'd do is I'd go to school, edit videos in the morning and during lunchtime, and then at the end of the day, I'd go home, set a 1-hour timer, and then cram all of the homework from that day within that hour, and then work on YouTube videos up until around 3 a.m. Then I'd wake up at 7 a.m. and do it all over again. I was managing it, but it definitely was not pretty because my grades plummeted. I was barely passing my classes, but I valued YouTube over school, so I mean, that was good enough for me. Fast forward to the end of the school year and we had to take exams that I could not afford to fail because of the state of my grades. And of all the tests that I would be taking, the one that scared me the most was my calculus exam, because numbers are exact. With other classes, you can finesse your way out of wrong answers because the topics are vague. For example, what is the last step of the water cycle? Precipitation or rain? Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue or committed mass genocide? What is the hidden meaning behind To Kill a Mockingbird?
Nobody fucking knows.
Vague questions, vague answers. You can't really do that with numbers, bro. Like 2 + 2 is 4. Nigga, if you don't know that, you're getting the question wrong. And we were so deep into pre-cal that the math tests look like English tests, okay? I still do math on my fingers. I am not catching up. So the thought of that test ate at my soul. But I still mainly focused on pursuing YouTube because that was what I wanted to do with my life. So I think to myself, yeah, I'll just wing it. Yeah, the test probably isn't even that long anyway. I'll have a calculator. Like, the answer should not be that hard to figure out, honestly. You're right. Even if I fail, I mean, it won't bring my grade down that much. So I keep animating and schooling until one day I'm in class and the bell rings. But before I get the chance to leave, my teacher, who I'll name Mrs. B, calls me up and says, Yo-Yo, are you ready for the exam tomorrow? Ready for the... I hope you do not plan on winging it. Wait, the test is 5 pages long. 5 pages? Even though you'll have a calculator, if you do not know the material, you won't find the answers. Like, 2 + 2 is 4. Nigga, I get that, but quite frankly, if you do not pass, you will not be able to walk the stage. But listen, I want the best for you, so please take this filled out study guide, go home, and go over it. Good luck. She hands me the study guide, turns around, and the only thing I can think is, no one told me that we had an exam tomorrow. I am going to flunk out of high school if I don't pass a 5-page state-issued calculus exam tomorrow. But instead of folding, I decided to tighten up my act and actually study. And study, I did. I was up till at least 4 a.m. going over this study guide. I had it down pack. I go to sleep, wake up the next day, and I genuinely feel hyped to take this test. I haven't put this much effort into studying, like, ever. So I sit at my desk with the utmost confidence. The packet gets handed to me. I open the test, pick up my pencil, and put that whole right back down. I did not know not one thing on this test, bro. Not one thing I studied was on the test. What is on this paper, bro? If f is a continuous function on the integral a, b, then d over dx, why am I learning this? Honestly, I vividly remember that it was at this point in my life that I realized school was not for me and that I was not gonna go to college. This test was so confusing that I had an existential crisis. I think to myself, I gotta cheat. Like, I have to cheat. There's no way I'm passing this. But I had no way to cheat because this was an impromptu decision. I had no time to prepare, and I was not gonna freestyle cheat because that would do nothing but get me caught. And if I get caught, I'm definitely failing the test and not graduating. I was stuck. I really had nothing to do. I started to panic, and then... Okay, guys, class is over. Turn in your test in the back row. I look at the clock. I panicked for 2 whole hours, yo. In an attempt to save my high school career, I take my test up to my teacher and ask if I could finish the test tomorrow. And since she knew my situation, she generously agrees. But I realized that this only bought me a little bit of time. Like, the inevitable is gonna happen. But right as I put my test in the back, it hits me. I think of a master plan that would make me pass this test. So I'm in the back of the classroom, unfinished test in hand, with the weight of my entire 4-year high school career on my shoulders. And I'm smiling because I know exactly what I have to do. So the plan is very simple. Whenever we take tests, Mrs. B stays after school to grade them. I know this because I also stayed in the building after school, because at the time I was actually new to this school. I moved from South Carolina to Texas in my senior year of high school. And when I moved, one of my US history credits did not transfer, so I had to take an after school class to finish it. So the bell rings and all the students leave and I go to my social studies class. I sit in the back of the class and stare out the door window patiently, waiting for Mrs. B to finish grading and leave. A couple hours pass and I hear exactly the sound that I was waiting for. I look out the window and I see her walking away. Game time. So I raise my hand, ask to go to the bathroom, and I'm out. So I leave and head for Mrs. B's class. Luckily enough for me, her door wasn't locked. So I open the door to the dark classroom, and right before I enter, I stop and think, if I walk into this room, not only would I be betraying the trust of my social studies teacher, but also the trust of a teacher that gave me test answers and an extra day to take the test. But I'll also pass high school, so, you know, walk in, don't get caught, whatever, go ahead. So I walk in and close the door behind me. I can't see anything, but I didn't want to alert anyone by turning on the light. This is a quick operation. All they had to do was grab one of the graded tests from the tray in the back, take a picture of it on my phone so I can use it on the test, and then dip. So I feel my way to the back of the class. I get there, I find the tray, but then I feel something. Something that wasn't here before. I soon realize that the jig is up. I'm done for. I turn around because the thing that I'm feeling is an empty test tray. The tests weren't in the back of the class, which means now I have to actively look for the tests, which is a problem because I don't want to risk getting caught, but I'm in way too deep, so I have no choice but to keep going. So I turn on my phone flashlight and I search religiously. I'm going through her desk, file cabinets, everything. The whole time I'm doing this, I'm shaking, I'm breathing heavy, I'm paranoid. I was on edge, okay? I can't stress how much of a high-stakes situation this was. I was breaking so many rules. But after searching, I finally find the test under some papers on Mrs. B's desk. Yo, this is actually working. I take pictures of every sheet on that test, but now that I had the merchandise, I needed to escape, like now. My anxiety is on 10 because it's like 8:30 p.m. at this point. I'm literally behind my teacher's desk holding someone else's graded state final exam. If I get caught, there is literally no logical excuse I can make. It's over. Screw not graduating. I could get expelled, maybe even arrested for trespassing, honestly. And almost as if it was on cue, before I could even put the test back, the light in the room turns on. I feel the coldest chill down my spine. I turn around and no one is there. I look around and I realize the lights in the room must be like automatic with the sensor, and I guess it's delayed to save power. I never knew that because I was always in the classroom during the day filled with people, so the lights were always on. But I then realized Mrs. B's room is right in front of her parked car, and it's night. She could very obviously see the light turn on. I just gotta get out of here now. I make a run for the door, but before I open it, I hear footsteps coming from the hall. You know what footsteps I'm talking about. Heels, walkie-talkie, dangling keys. I'm compromised because if I walk out now, they will see me. I freeze out of fear. The noise gets louder, louder, and louder. The locked door unlocks. The door swings open and then...
I'm out the rip, shorty the scope because I do not miss. I'm with a shorty and shit with a hit. I am the go nigga, you get the gist. When I shoot my shot, I don't need an assist. Buckets, I got the heat, tuck it. Nigga want beef, fuck it. Wanna run up on me, good luck then, cause I make it obvious that I don't back down. I'm being honest, ain't no need to cap now. Flow is the hottest, so I'm finna act out. Swear they gon' try to get me off the track now. What? I'm talking shit, but I swear I'm not arrogant. They want it smell, so I just started airing it. I can't wait to hit a bitch nigga in the face. I'm just playing, man, I carry it. Hey. Off of the rip, don't need a scope because I do not miss. I'm with a shorty and shit with a hit. I am the go nigga, you get the gist. When I shoot my shot, I don't need an assist. What?